Hello everyone. I would like to talk about today something quite interesting actually, but it's something that it's a bit hard to explain. But in doing so, it will make many things clear. You see, we want to be practical with human life, and Mr. Within wants to find ways in which a human being can efficiently live their life. And efficiency usually is based on condition. And what that means is that when we sit down to think about what we are, who we are, where we are in the presence of our own interpretation of what change means. And so when you look at change, it is that moment within you where you can go into the most abstract ideas within your mind, or you can simply look at something outside and have no idea. So it's one of those things where you are choosing how to receive. And when I say you are choosing, at first you think it's you. At first you think the way we're shaped here, the self-awareness we have, how we have conducted ourselves this whole time has been you. But when you really look at it, the colors of you has been painted by your environment. And so all these moments that are in your memory are perhaps different times you have been in different associations of moments. However, the moment in its association is also made aware of how there's a dissociation because you are making the association. And what that means is that if I put if I put a painting on an empty wall, I'm the one who's put the painting. So I'm also aware that there can also be no painting. So there's a possibility in this reality where these stories we're projecting, that is our self, that is our ego, can be very real to us and also can be very not real to us. And so the people who have succeeded, the great men, were people who they took some aspect of their internal knowing and they realized that it wasn't just for them. It's as if when Martin Luther King was speaking, he was speaking for all men. It's that when Gandhi picked up that salt, it wasn't only his hand, but the hand of every Indian man that was there to be present. You know, it's very important to recognize that we are never alone because our moments are combined to all other moments that we're aware of. It's like the awareness is happening on the same table. The designer, regardless of how many different tools it has, how many ways it has lived, how many different times and spaces it has conceived, it's all happening on the same table. Because that is what you have now. Because if there's an aspect of you that is beyond you, that is so high, it's so high that you call a higher self, in quotations, you know. So that means, regardless, you are feeling that you cannot be in that range. You are feeling that as if your eyes cannot open to some aspect of you which is very mysterious and unknown. However, this all suggests how your relationship with the unknown is, and it's very important. It's up to you to actually look at throughout the day what you're doing. So let's say you wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, I got this thing to do, I got this thing to do, I got this thing to do. And sometimes you don't have things to do, but you're like, all right, I'm just going to go and do this and see what happens, you know? So in going and doing all these activities, which are all associations of the moment, which you don't need to measure, they're kind of just there in your memory, you know? The human being is a very advanced technology as a piece of existence, as a piece of life. So now that we're here, we've gone through all these moments, there comes times where if you have an ability to just observe something without having your own interpretation on it, you will see that the meaning of the moment will shift in what is actually there. So that moment where I was in some room and I'm like, this is my room. I looked around and I'm like, gosh, I'm in my brother's room, for example. You know, this is not my room, you know. So, so it's very important to, for example, have that awareness. To have that awareness that your psychology is not something to put on a platter and then, you know, to kind of, actually even at some point, to do surgery and to completely go through and why your form is the way it is, why your face is like this. I mean, you can think about what's the philosophy behind how your face looks like, but you know, it's nothing that really matters that much. We want practical activity, and so it's not that thing where I'm telling you, oh man, sit down and meditate so you find freedom. It's not like that. It's actually, meditation is what you call when a human being becomes life sensitive, when they want to, the concept of clarity becomes something that is useful for them. It's a tool. All concepts, all words, everything are things that you have are made aware of in your awareness. So you're aware of it, and then it's meaningful enough to be even worked with, and then it's real enough to even be worked with. So, if let's take me. If I was to observe all the things, if we were to suddenly look at Mr. Within and see what his day is like, for example. We will see that at first, when I was younger, life needed a plan of action. And at times it still does, but it also needs a sensitivity to the information in which you're utilizing to make a plan. So throughout the day, you might be constantly just, let's say you do your work, you do your job, whatever, and you come home. And it's all been a physical relationship. It's as if they've given you a day of life, and in this day of life, you haven't, there might have been beautiful moments, but in a sense, all associations has been in change of space. So it's as if in the changes of physicality, the significance of your life occurred. But there are moments in a human being where he can go back to that concept I told you of how when you put the painting on the wall, you can also put it out. So you see that, let's say your day happens and things happen for you, it's like, if you're active, you are interested by something to be involved, or you're in a sense involved in some action. So it is very important to recognize that our involvement in life is that association where if we have that ability to, for a second, press pause and just be in our reality, we will get a clear understanding of our reality as if we are the observance of it. So it's a very interesting concept. You see, throughout life, many people look out their eyes and they're like, this is me, this is it. I'm just this physical body, and of course the laws of sciences have given me color in how this works, but now I'm going on and I'm experiencing, and of course I've lived my life the way I have. This is all based on the image on the wall still. Meditation was interesting because it brought forth an awareness to the concept of an observer at first for me. So I looked around and I realized, wow, my whole associations in this whole time of living has been as if this is an object, what do these objects mean? You know? But then I realized that there's an aspect of existential intelligence that is observing itself. And so how do you know this? It's because you are observing my words that are entering your ear. You are aware of where you exist. If I ask you a question, there is an attention that you are giving yourself as a being which really communicates something. And so there are different intensities of this. We have people who are highly just in physical action directed in the sense that they're not just they're inside a painting, they're also making sure all the colors are right. And there are also people who take off the painting and are just in the caves in the Himalayas just trying to absorb what life means internally, in a sense. Because that's the point. Your externality is your identification unless you observe it to see that that observer is beyond the object of observance. The object of experience is a limitation only when the experiencer is not aware of. It's only when you think you're an object that objective reality has control over you. It's only when you think that, let's say, that was your only painting that you get bothered when the painting comes off the wall, for example. You are not an individual being in all contexts of your life. You are mainly in this plane of existence and in how you are conceiving yourself to be an individual and how there's even distance, you know? But we see that regardless, it's as if the human being has woken up from a long sleep and it didn't know how long it slept. It doesn't know its history. It doesn't know where it originated. It has just come into a self-awareness where it can communicate. I mean, think about this world. If human beings did not have terminals of communication, it would be as if like you need to let the planet grow a little bit until there is something to work with. So you see, the fact that we are able and we are aware and we have just turned in, we have in a sense woken up to our humanity in the way that it is now. It's very important not to get eluded by culture, because if you are too convinced by cultural phenomena, you will not search authentically. And that is the problem of our youth. That was the problem for me. I did not search authentically because my life was not real to me. All my ideas of my life were real to me. For life to be real for you, you gotta get hit, and you gotta thank life when it hits you. You gotta thank life when that experience comes that shakes you out of all those ideas that you thought you were. Man is beyond ideology because its ability to observe dissolves the experience of form into simply a very vast sense of moment. This vast sense of moment, we can choose to, call it different things and, try to follow certain ancient scriptures, for example, or how the Upanishads have communicated. Or we can simply see that because we are not just a robot. We don't need information in the sense that it needs to be shaped at times. You need information to be received by you experientially, because that is valuable. What that means is that that moment where you're inside the roller coaster and the roller coaster is moving, you can never forget the roller coaster because you're in it. It's as if the experience is happening in your present sense of time and space. So it's very important that you become aware of what you're experiencing. And at times, the mind is as if like, let me say it like this. It's as if we are an awareness of an empty wall. And you know those projectors that project like big screens on the wall? And so there's this projector on the wall, right? And so when the projector's on the wall, all these projections are coming, and most of the time we've been associating with the light in our eyes, with the light that's been on us or that's given us awareness, you know? But sometimes you will see that does the human being have an ability to acknowledge itself beyond form? And this question never has an answer. And when you find these questions that point to glitches in your system of thought, you realize your system of thought is an incomplete one, because man is not everything at first. Your experience right now is of an individual person walking in the park, for example. For example, I'm walking in the park right now. However, experience will always have an element of change which is unknown. So regardless of how certain that person was, in our agreed co-creation, perhaps there were some very valuable reasons why that person was certain. But when you realize the concept of infinite change, it's the arrogance of an inferior mind to try to hang on to order in a chaotically changing world. In Greek mythology, I like the fact that they were really straight up in the sense that they're like, the world began from chaos, you know? And so, I know it got a bit, you know, weird afterwards how, how everything else came. But, you know, it began from chaos, you know. And to be honest, Greek mythology is a very powerful permission slip for man, and especially for kids, because it is telling them what is beyond a man. And it has been another man who's in the clouds usually. But now, all these men are realizing that no, it's not just imagery. It's my experience of imagery. It is how I am observing reality. It is the responsibility of each one of us to quickly find our natural state. And in that natural state, realize we don't need to think about it that much. We simply need to emanate. We need to allow our existence to be its expression. And that means stop thinking that much and have that moment of disassociation with all those associations you're considering. And that simply means that you've gone, let's say you've been that busy CEO, you've made hectic decisions, you've had people say things to you, and suddenly, let's say, one moment throughout your day, let's say you've gone outside and you suddenly see it's as if the grass is much more calmer than you. There have been moments in my life where I've been rushing and I've suddenly stopped to see as if no one else is rushing, just me. And it's been a very, very interesting experience, because when I observed the nature of thought in different moments of my being, what awareness was keeping all of it here? Similar to how you open your eyes and just the nature of light presents to you, for example, this bench in front of you in the park. Similarly, what has presented you? Are we found in greater gazes? Is man arrogant enough to think that there is separate minds in a world that is kept together by everything? It is very important to realize that man is at a point where he must come up with new modalities of thought. So we need some aspect of people in society being like, no, these thoughts are wrong. We don't agree with any thought of mankind. And we need an aspect of mankind being like, yes, we agree. And we also need people in the middle bringing new ideas. So it's important that we see that we're not here to play a truth game. Mankind's not here to say, oh, I know the truth, I know the truth, I know the truth. No, we are here to be efficient as beings. And that efficiency means in how much care and awareness and clarity we have of our environment. How much self-awareness do you have? How much aware are you of, in a sense, your situation of life, your condition of life? It is very important that you handle any problem by realizing that the greatest solution is a clear one and is a simple one. What that means is that, let's say, I'm time constrained, I only have, let's say, 100 years, and I have to, let's say, figure out how to make the world a better place as an individual human being. I am born suddenly, pop, I'm in reality. And as I'm in reality, as I grow up, I realize, okay, so who I first am to see what I'm seeing is based on all that I've absorbed. So my reception is me. So how I'm receiving life suggests the life that I see, in which then it becomes the life that I want to move in. So as a human being, you will very simply understand that there is a flow in nature. That it's not that these objects don't have intelligence. The whole cosmos has intelligence. That is how existence exists. So the fact that I'm treating an object like an object it's only real if that is considered to be an object. It is only real if you are a bad man in my experience, if I consider you a bad man, or if something in my experience tells me, oh, this guy's a bad guy, you know? However, you are none of this. Because a deep existential understanding moves beyond ideology. It moves beyond who you think you are. And that is why it is a huge, overwhelming sense of confrontation when you begin looking at life. Because you need to, in a sense, disassociate with your ideas. It's as if the artist realizing a new brush, and he's like, gosh, this whole brush that I've created reality with is not the right brush. And so you let go to realize first the nature of your hands to then pick up a better brush. Because we do not only have one set of hands. I mean, our mind has a reach that, in regards to experience, the internal and external dissolve. The concept of an outside becomes challenged by you in a way where the simple thought of it is your allowance. Not the simple thought, but the simple observance of the thought is your allowance. So you need to really see that you as a human being have attitude. You have many attitudes. I mean, it's just how you've been designed, who your parents were, or regardless who your environment was, you know? It's like your parents are not only the figures, family figures here. You need to have a family type relationship with everything in your environment, with every living thing, with everything that you see life, because you have seen the value in your life. So let's say if you were an observer suddenly and you were just this bird flying around you, you would see that you are a valuable piece of life because you are aiming to survive. It's as if your system is keeping itself alive. And so this keeping itself alive means that there's an inspiration for life to live. So regardless of how much you kill people or not, life has an inspiration to live. So you're simply going against the flow. You're touching something that there is no need to touch. It's as if you think you're an engineer and people are telling you don't touch it. There's nothing wrong, and suddenly, oh gosh, you just destroyed a good thing. And what that means is reality is fragile. Change is relevant, and also change appears very irrelevantly at times. So just think of the fact of how could you plan for that sudden, let's say, transition in your life. You know, you can't. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're just walking and you realize the human being is not a textbook. But it has an ability to read one, but also has the ability to go sit outside and just know life as it is. You see, there's some teachers who require you, in order for you to become capable in certain aspects of the physical dimension, to study. You need to study science at times. You need to understand what physical reality looks like, not just to you, but to the collective, to how other human beings are, in a sense, present. But as you're aware of it, you are always aware that you have your own interpretation. You have your own study, you know? Think of it this way. They checked and they found out a lot of great men back in the day took walks. And it made sense because there was no TV. People had to go outside. They lived outside. You wouldn't stay inside that much. You know, you'd go work and then you'd come back. So in the sense that we are right now more engaged in our internal reality, what that means is that it's as if some people have an awareness of what within means or inside means, but it's actually not an awareness, existential awareness. It's just like they've looked at their externality and they're like, okay, because the externality looks like this, the internal probably looks like this. But actually, the internal experience of man is beyond a dimension of experience that is dual. So it's like it's not the moment where it's only good experience or bad experience. It's that moment where you have been calm enough and self-observant enough to become aware of the, let's say, the bad qualities and the good qualities within you at the same time. It's as if you chose to not just hear one story, but all the stories known to mankind. And so this is important because there needs to be a longing within you. There needs to be that moment where you're like, okay, I can choose not to hold a sword in this battlefield of trying to realize who I am in this reality. But because it's in a sense war, it's not the fact that I'm here to kill others, but to kill all ideology that does not serve me. To, in a sense, cleanse my mind by knowing who I am existentially. It's important, guys. There's a lot of fantasies that come into the mind of youth in the sense that even the parents induce it. They're like, what do you want to be? And so the kid's like, what does that mean? I have to be something specific? And so the kid goes into the psychology of thinking that life has to be in a certain way. And so when he sees life is not in a certain way after the mind's been like, oh, it has to be a certain way. Look, they're accepting me in a certain way. Schools are accepting me in a certain way. People are communicating with me in a certain way. So my being a certain way is the solution. But you will see as you grow older in life and you're confronting the reality that you're temporal, the fact that everything changes, and so there's a resurfacing of all imagery in new ways, you will suddenly see that you're not here to really hold on or to get material objects. You're not here to carry gold chains. I mean, you have the right to put 10 gold chains on your neck, you know, but you will see that that weight is unnecessary because there's no need to be lost in ideology that is not real to you. In an instant, ideology can be real to me, and in an instant, it cannot be real to me. That means there have been moments where I've, for example, listened to this talk on YouTube, and it's as if in that talk, an aspect of myself did not make sense anymore because my awareness to it was changed. So, you see, there's an aspect of your intelligence that people measure, which is the intelligence that you present in regards to duplication. So, school is mainly repetition of information to show that you can carry it. But we are temporal beings in the sense that we're infinitely changing. So the fact that we are trying to survive linearly in a world where there's a non-linear intelligence means that we are being a bit arrogant, and so our society or our civilization is not evolving as fast. What that means is right now we need to create platforms of communication. Forget things that are like a story for you that much, or like a game for you. A game, you want something out of it, so there's a sense of self that will be always limited to capturing that need. But once you become simply, you're present here as life, as just a living being, you recognize you never needed to call that tree a tree. You never needed to call that aspect of a tree a leaf, and suddenly see that when the leaf fell, oh gosh, you know, why did it have to crumble? Why? You know, it's our ability to acknowledge ourselves in our clarity that really gives us a sense of being free. Freedom is an undefinable quality where the experiencer is aware. That's it. When you become aware of the experiencer, an aspect of you does not require logical or rational means of reception to really realize itself. You realize, for example, many people have taken the path of devotion, and devotion is of as I've heard many people playfully say, is of a different dimension. It's as if there's some people in society that really need books to learn, and there's others who need devotion to their life. That means they're learning and their greatest teachings are coming in how much they are loving their moment. And it's very important because who are some people who are teaching of how to love the moment? Guess what? Zen masters, for example, you know, people who are actually not trying to master you or not trying to control you, but are trying to, in a sense, tell you that through your sense of release, there comes the vision of your own clarity to then discover. There have been times where I've been in a very bad situation and I've been trying to sing, I've been trying to, let's say, be a boss in that situation. I've been trying to control that situation. I've been trying to, fix that situation. But I noticed at times that sometimes we struggle for no reason, and I had to let go of the strings that I had connected to things. And so what that meant is that in that situation in life, I did not let go of the object as in saying, no, this, for example, bench is not here. I let go of my hands, which was an internal sense of awareness. So what that means is many people who, let's say, get an experience of some form of greater and clearer reality shout it out to others. I was talking to a girl here who, she came out of nowhere and she started telling me how she would see these orbs or these lights on her book or something, and that she knew in herself that she was communicating to God, right? So an aspect of me can be arrogant and could be like, really? You're talking to God? Really? 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 And just like, say a lot of garbage to her and not be an efficient human being. But an aspect of me could realize that also it can ask you questions, be like, what do you mean God? Explain yourself. What do you mean orbs? What do you mean light? I could be like that. Or an aspect of me could be so grateful and respectful for how form is existed in front of me, that the sense that I am aware of my existence takes me beyond the need to judge another man's judgment, for I am no longer judged. And in that knowing of presence, silence is the best speech. Some of my greatest words have never been there. I have just, when you bask in your silence, the being of the individual becomes significant. So in the sense that I was no longer thinking that, this person saying this story is an idiot because of his story, or is a genius because of his story. No. Simply the fact that this is life in front of me. This is alive. This is how a human form has moved. And look at how beautifully, spontaneously this communication has come to me. And so with that, there was a smile in me that had no reason. And so I realized we are not even experiencing human communication properly. We're so obsessed with terminology that our cage is made of many bars. Both in songs that are heard and in a sense communicated in ways that are not that healthy, It's like there's an aspect of you which shouldn't get that hit at first in life, but there's also an aspect of you that should always be able to move beyond any hit, Learn from your heart. Your heart keeps going till the end of your life. So there should be an aspect of you in your thought process, if you choose to, in a sense, be a thinker, or in your awareness that is just a continuation, a formless continuation. If I ask you what is a formless continuing quality in your life, you will see that you're taken to these profound moments where you are asking life what life is, and you're not asking any other man, any other book, any other theory, any other science, any other religion, any other dogma. But simply seeing that it doesn't matter how you're acting now, it matters how aware you are of the actor. It matters how you are receiving life within this moment, and it's a quality thing. Because the quality of life shifts, and if your quality of life hasn't changed, then you won't know. For example, if you don't go knock on that door, you never know if there's someone inside. So you require in your self-exploration to actually go and observe these things. You need to go find whether your realities are real for you, and it is you. It is you that needs to observe it. And so, for example, if you're in a religious sense of setting, if you've been brought up in that way, it doesn't mean bash religion and play with the imagery. Don't touch the information you have, but be aware of what it is that you have in this life. Because it is very important to find Mr. Within at this time. It's simply like that moment where it's as if everyone is ready, but they're just waiting to do something, right? It's as if many people are self-aware, they've studied so many things, but it's like, gosh, if only I could talk about these things, right? And so one of man's problems at this point, which we'll have a very quick answer to, is his sense of keeping, tracking, and shaping natural form into information. Once you have an ability to simply be, in realizing that the human being was at first a being, not just human doing all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, everything that we simply see in regards to society it is from the human form. It is from the human being, but the awareness to the being part is less because the human idea is doing something. It is very important to find clarity for yourself and what clarity means to you. Clarity for someone can be like an attack, a sense of them engaging their environment. Clarity for another person, another human being, could be the sense of disengaging their environment, you know? Think of that person that couldn't speak or didn't want, that was introverted, and think of that person we considered extroverted. It's not that they were different, it's just that in their mind, their ideas about themselves gave them different existential allowances. Sometimes you get caught in your own ideas to the point where you can't move. Oh, that's happened to me. When I was even younger, I couldn't even respond to things. And it's because my ideology and my conditioning had paralyzed me. Many people suffer from the paralysis of ideology. And what that means is that, gosh, the ideas that you constantly have your attention on are not ones that are giving you full existential allowance. Like, for example, check this out. The concept of a slave, it is one that is limiting the ability when one knows they have ability. Similarly, you don't have to think that you're one identity when you have an ability to identify with everything. So the intelligence does not have to be individual, but can be. And what that means is that there was a part of me that thought it was individual and there was nothing else, but then a part of me, in its awareness and observance of all experiences of life and its own internal dimensions and external dimensions and all the conception that it had for itself, began to realize that individualization is really one of the greatest acts of free will. Because our freedom and our willingness comes actually from how much space there is to move. And those beings who transcend the need for a sense of space and time realize that their moment has a way of presenting itself that it knows in all lack of knowing. It's like nobody could have talked about a good guy without suggesting the idea of a bad person in your mind. And no person could have talked about a bad person without your mind thinking of what a good person means. And all words that enter your ears, regardless whether it's mine or anyone else's, is actually your interaction with your ideology. When you hear someone talk, you are in a sense going through this point where you're thinking about the thinker and seeing that there's nothing there. And so don't think that all theories, all sciences, all writings, even my talks are the clearest things. What is the clearest aspect of your being is your moment of now. And your moment of now needs no interpretation. It just needs a mirror. All teachers ever needed was a mirror. And so that is what we need to see in our schools, because the school systems are repetitive in the sense that they are not giving you a mirror. They are saying, remember these things, learn these things, duplicate these things, repeat these things, and at the end of it, realize this thing you've been constantly repeating was not your own ideas. What that means is that when the kid goes to the school system, it is very important he utilizes that time to explore self. Many kids don't explore self. They explore the work of others, what others have done, what other structures are. I mean, there is a requirement for that, but there's also a requirement in knowing thyself during the time that you are here. What that means is that if you're in a party, and if you're in my party, and you have the possibility of having a great time, it's your decisions that are limiting you in a place where you're allowed. You have this limitless world in front of you. And it is you who choose if you want to still look at it as a computer screen, TV screen, or to go get involved in life. Do you understand? Some of our most authentic leaders are going to be people who just get involved in life because nobody's getting that involved. And I don't want to say nobody's getting that involved, but I'm seeing the youth being distracted by media. U2 said TV was the drug of the nation. And as an artist, I'm pretty sure he tried a lot of drugs, you know? Mainly very, very rich musicians do try drugs. And so it's like that moment of seeing that after all the drugs that perhaps a rock star could have tried, he'd see, wait a minute, this drug affects only me. but that drug is affecting the nation. So it's very important we realize that drugs are not just physical things. Drugs are things that are not serving mankind in the sense of an obsessive way. So for example, you constantly being obsessed with a certain shape of an ideology, it's a devouring type of experience because you are the one who is, in a sense, devouring the idea. That moment where you like suddenly see something nice and you're like, it's mine, I want to take it. When you have that Schmiegel moment or Golem moment where everything becomes your precious, that you become that billionaire who is like, oh, look at my precious. It's just so precious, you know? You will see that there is a lack of awareness there that will make you feel as if you are devouring thing without contribution. What that means is that sometimes, let's say, I go and I have a party or I do something that is just you know, years later I'll be like, gosh, did I really do that? You know? So let's say if I do that, I will see that if I feel about it, bad about it, is because I was aware of, in a sense, of an opportunity cost of what I was doing. So sometimes I've been in moments of life where I've done something and it's as if I've been devouring it. It's as if I've been taking it without my own allowance to take it, without my allowance for myself. Do you know? It doesn't matter for anyone else. It's just that it's as if like I haven't given myself this permission to do this. So when I'm doing that, it has a devouring feeling. So then, because I've devoured something, oh gosh, I feel like something's going to devour me. And you're thrown in this terrible psychology of guilt and of being thrown into realms where there's trouble and there's, you know, fire and stuff. You know, you choose if you want to see that imagery. Assume that you had never heard of the concept of hell. Would your experience of hell still be like that? No. But because you've heard it, you are giving yourself an ability to make it real, because it was real for your loved ones or for those around you which you trusted. It's very important that I've had moments where, you know, it's been very intense. I've been in nature and I've got profound thoughts, very profound thoughts. But in my awareness of it, I realized those thoughts were not still mine. Not that they weren't mine, but it's just like they were not things that were still real for me. It's as if the thought came in, but I'm like, I'm not convinced. So in my reality, my exploration became one where my ideology became still. So the way I observed and made my sense of communication with existence more clear is that I stopped my ideology. It's as if that moment where all the galaxies and all these stars that were moving, just a command was given and the mind stopped. It's like the apocalypse was when the mind of minds, for a sense, stopped a second, you know? Now, in this sense of being aware of the fact that creation is both your creation and also the creation of the duality you consider, man is required to, in the cosmos of his conception, in the cosmos of his awareness, and forget how much you can see or if you have a telescope or not, just simply observe and be like, I have an awareness to my mind, so I am aware of mind immediately. Not my mind, not anyone's mind, just I am aware of a sense of mind. Now, as you're aware, your thoughts sometimes imply movement, but thought does not have to mean anything. It's like that moment where you see that person was talking to you was just saying sounds. It was like a human being making noise, and so it was your interpretation of the noise that made life really meaningful. So a good life is how well you have observed what is the interpretation and what is interpreting your life. How meaningless would it be if let's say, the 5-year-old aspect of you is still, you know, real, has some elements of reality where other things are not real for you, for example. Do you know? It's as if, imagine your mind never grew from, let's say, when you were 5 years old. Do you know? You would see that it's as if something's being kept there that shouldn't. And so life is not about really how much you are excited by your ideology or your ideas, but how aware you are on the nature of form, on the nature of reality, and for the pilot of consciousness, your plane of existence, which is now. Remember, your knowing is your natural flow in life within your sense of trust of life. So if you do not trust your life, how can you expect to get things that are valuable. You must trust life by seeing the value in life. It's like before you play the game, you must understand and observe the value of the game. Do you have a value that you're here? And of course you do. That is why you're here. Eckhart Tolle has a very interesting quote that suggests that how do you know if you're having the right experience? Because that is the experience you're having in this moment. The power of now is beyond idea, and that is why it's an important recognition. Because our attention is a different movement of intelligence in different senses of awareness. The compass and needle were never lost to one another, but part of a greater finding. As your moment of experience and being remembers itself, you were never you, I was never I, and there was no limitation in a limitless sky. Much blessings and namaste.